Afternoon. It's good to be here. I'm Chad Washington. I'm the chair of the Department of Neurosurgery at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi. And I'm here today with Dr. Greg Zipfel, one of my good friends, who's the current Ralph G. Dacey Distinguished Chair of Neurosurgery at Washington University in St. Louis. Greg, great to be here. Thanks for joining today for this interview for the AANS.
Thanks for doing this for me, Chad. I appreciate it, and welcome back to St. Louis.
Good to be here. Greg, so you're from Peoria, Illinois, went to the University of Illinois, then transitioned to Northwestern University for medical school, and then the University of Florida for residency.
Right.
And then fellowship at Miami,
right.
Correct?
Yep.
And then when you did during your residency, though, you had a connection with WashU during a fellowship in research, correct?
Right. Yeah. So basically, I'm an Illinois Midwest guy at heart. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, and my dad grew up in a tiny, tiny town in Southern Illinois. And so my entire life was kind of in those two spaces. And I went to University of Illinois for undergrad and Northwestern for medical school. So I was definitely an Illinois guy. And then I kind of broke out for residency at the University of Florida in Gainesville and trained under Dr. Roden, Dr. Day, and Dr. Friedman. And those were what turned out to be almost about 8 wonderful years. Met my wife there and made some really great friends and thought I got wonderful training. During residency, though, I really got turned on to the idea of pursuing an academic career, and in particular, a laboratory research career. And my area of interest at the time, and still is vascular. And it just turns out that the options for me at the University of Florida at the time really didn't seem to be there. And I got great advice from Dr. Day, one of my mentors, and then another mentor who was actually a fellow at the time, Dr. Don Kim, to start looking outside of Gainesville and look for just the best lab, best world-class experience in terms of research that I could find. And that landed me here at Washington University in St. Louis in the Department of Neurology, actually, with the chair at the time, Dennis Choi, who at the time was just world-renowned for his work with ischemic brain injury, pathophysiology, excitotoxicity. And so I joined that lab in 1998 and was here for 2 years, and I did peer research for 2 years. I didn't touch the OR. I went to neurosurgery conferences and actually opened some doors with Dr. Dacey, who was the chair at the time, and a few other faculty and residents that I got to know in the neurosurgery department. But primarily, I was doing research in neurology. Then I went back to finish my clinical training at University of Florida, did a year fellowship, open vascular and skull-based fellowship with Dr. Morcos and Dr. Heros at the University of Miami. And then I started looking for jobs, and then this job here came open, and for me, it was a dream job for me. Close to my home, world-class institution, strong history of surgeons, scientists, and academics, and a wonderful chair, Dr. Dacey, who recruited me back. So it was a very natural fit for me to come back here to start my faculty career.
So growing up in Peoria, how was that transition from Peoria, Illinois to neurosurgery? Was there a natural evolution to that? Or was it?
No. So my parents were teachers, and I don't have anybody in my family who's a doctor or really, beyond college, kind of advanced degrees and things of that nature. That's just not part of my family history, really. And so what's interesting is that I ultimately went into medicine. I have 2 sisters. One became a nurse anesthetist, and the other one became a speech pathologist. So despite no medicine in our family history, all 3 of us wound up in medicine, basically in healthcare. And we have talked about that, and I think it really related back probably mostly to my mom, who I remember sitting us down in front of PBS shows, about medicine or healthcare or surgery or, she just had an interest in medicine or interest in science that she exposed us to. And then my grade school turned out they were very serious about science fairs and things like that. And I think those 2 influences got me thinking about science. But to be honest, it's a long road, as you know. At that time in my life, I just was not at all prepared or thinking that I was kind of up for that type of length of training. So I started out in engineering at the University of Illinois, well-known engineering school, and I was good at math and science. Thought maybe that might be a route for me that would not require as many years of training. But after 2 years of that, I realized that that was just not my passion, and I made a commitment to go to medical school. Then changed my major and went pre-med and just went and took that route. And then the same thing happened to me in medical school. I got to medical school. I was drawn to cardiac surgery and I was drawn to neurosurgery, but it was the length of training that I just didn't have any kind of context for with my family and personal relationships. So that intimidated me, and I spent my first 2 years looking for something else that I might like that was shorter in terms of training. But then after a couple of years, a lot of people started making these decisions, and I just kind of got kind of indoctrinated to the culture of subspecialty surgical training, and I made a commitment to neurosurgery, and that was off to the races then. Once I made that decision, I realized I want to get to the best program to get trained well, and I want to be competitive to get the best job coming out of training, which I knew for me, I wanted to be in a university setting, mainly because I felt like that's where the best go is as a university. The research for me was not on my mind that much until I started understanding what it meant to get a university neurosurgery job, and then I started pursuing the research at that point.
So you went from avoiding the lengthy training,
Yes,
to neurosurgery plus extra research time,
yes,
plus skull-based fellowship.
yes. So my co-resident at the time, Kelly Foote, who's a very well-known functional neurosurgeon at the University of Florida. So he and I were co-residents we started out together as co-residents. He finished a couple of years ahead of me because he didn't do this extra stuff that I did. But my parting gift when I finally finished was a flask that said PGY9. So I had 9 years of training before I started as a faculty member.
So you decided neurosurgery.
Yeah.
You committed to the training. There's any number of specialties within neurosurgery. Skull-based itself, there are people who commit to their lives, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
But you decided to do cerebrovascular skull-based plus run a lab dedicated to cerebrovascular.
Right.
So where in your training did you make that decision of like, okay, I've decided neurosurgery, but it's going to be this very particular aspect of neurosurgery?
So that was easy for me because I trained at the University of Florida, and Art Day was like my, I wanted a career like Art Day. I wanted to be Art Day. And he was a very well-known open vascular, highly skilled microsurgeon who also did some skull-based and some other things. But I wanted to be like him. He was the best, from my perspective, the best microsurgeon at the University of Florida, nationally known, making contributions to the specialty, advancing the surgical management of aneurysms. And I really wanted to be like him. So PGY2, met him, got to know him, was on his service, and I really wanted to be a vascular neurosurgeon. And I also, like I said earlier, really wanted to land or be competitive for a top job at a university. And by then I had now understood through him, through Dong Kim, who was his fellow, and through some other mentors at Florida, that for that type of job, oftentimes that means getting deep into research, which can really open some doors. And so that's when I really started thinking about research as a component of my career. I wanted to do vascular stroke-oriented research. That led me to the decision to leave Florida to go to Washington University with this world-renowned scientist, Dennis Choi. And so I got into it from that perspective. And then it turns out I really like research, and I really got turned on to it during those 2 years. I met a great postdoc fellow, a neurologist named Jinmu Lee at the time. And turns out our careers have kind of intertwined over the years since that initial introduction. And he currently is the chair of neurology at Washington University, while I'm the chair of neurosurgery at Washington University. So that started during those 2 formative years of research. But I just loved it. I thought the creativity of it, the discovery of something new, the possibility that perhaps we could stumble upon something that might actually be leveraged into new therapy to help patients to a better degree than we currently had. All of that really, really kind of rang true to me and something I wanted to incorporate into my career long term. So I went back to training at the University of Florida to finish up my clinical training, but then I had to make some decisions. And one of those decisions, because at this time of vascular neurosurgery as a specialty, people were just starting to get into endovascular. And so I had to make a decision at that point whether I was going to get endovascularly trained as well as open vascular trained. And so I had lots of discussions with my mentors there. And ultimately, I felt that what I was being told and what I felt internally was that trying to be a really top-tier open vascular surgeon, top-tier endovascular neurosurgeon, and run a serious NIH-funded laboratory, those are three distinct skill sets in some way, and trying to do all three of those things really well, I was told, and I really believed at the time that would be very difficult. And so I chose to do open vascular and lab, and thinking that I could tackle two of those three things and do that very well. So that was a choice I made a long time ago, and I think it served me really, really well. But nowadays, you look around, and there are people who are open vascular trained, endovascular trained, and can do serious research like you have, and others. So I'm not sure if that was accurate at the time, but that was my thinking when I made that decision. So I kind of made a conscious decision not to do endovascular to make sure really to make sure the lab became well-founded and would prosper for years to come. So that was just a conscious decision I made at the time.
So you spoke about Dr. Day.
Yeah.
But over the course of your career, you've either been trained or led by, a number of giants within the field. Dr. Day, Dr. Rogan, Dr. Friedman, Dr. Morkos, Dr. Heros, Dr. Dacey.
Yeah.
So you want to take an opportunity and a little bit of time to talk about those mentorships and how they impacted your career over, from young resident to new faculty, now as the chair of a department and leader of a, top-tier program in the country.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just feel blessed, one, to have the kind of mentorship that I've had. I have found in my career, especially when I was a program director and as a chair, there are certain people, trainees or junior faculty, who are really drawn to mentors, and they really seek it out and something that they really embrace. And there's another small group of residents and some junior faculty who, no matter what you do, they don't seem to recognize the importance of mentorship. And then there's another group in the middle where, I think they understand it, but if you can foster it and prioritize it within your department or in your residency, I think they will take it seriously. But undeniably, mentors will pave the way for you. You will make less mistakes, and you'll make better decisions if you really lean into mentorship. And I just, for whatever it is inside me, I've always leaned into it. So for me, in neurosurgery, my first real true mentor was Art Day, for sure. And I wanted to be like him. He took me under his wing. He allowed me to use his office, when I didn't, as a resident, I didn't have an office and needed to work on projects. He and his wife, Dana, were wonderful about having residents over to his house. And we just really felt like you were part of his life inside and outside of neurosurgery. That meant something. It really meant, like I was accepted in some sort of way. And then he was a tremendous, surgical mentor. And then he had a lot of forethought into what I might need to get research training so I could do what I wanted to do long term, and supported my decision to leave Gainesville for 2 years and seek research opportunities elsewhere, which I really am indebted to him for that. And lastly, and I've told him this, I've mentioned this in numerous scenarios when I talk about how to be successful as a surgeon scientist, he also allowed me to recognize or impressed upon me the need to recognize that early in your career, you really need to focus your clinical practice into a modest but focused practice on your area of expertise, for me, vascular, to free up time so you could be successful as a scientist and running a lab. And you need to make that decision as early as possible, in my mind, and be emotionally ready. So when you become a junior faculty, you can make strategic decisions to be successful in that area. What does that mean? Well, you go through 9 years of training for me, most 7 or 8 years. you really want to operate. You feel like you've put a lot of time and effort into learning the skills, to developing that skill set, and you want to apply it, and you want to, and you want to take care of patients. And I think that's good. But early on in your research career, modest, focused practice on an area that you're going to really kind of become known in would be the advice I would give, the advice I was given by Dr. Day. And he would say things like, once you develop a clinical practice, it takes on a life of its own. So early on, you need to make strategic decisions and say no and do things so you can create that time. So when I started as faculty, I was prepared for that emotionally, to say no and accept a smaller footprint in terms of my surgical practice, and accept that really probably I'd make a little less money early on as I got things established from my academic career. And I really credit Dr. Day a lot for that. In addition to Dr. Day at Florida, I was very much influenced by Dong Kim, who was his fellow and had become a long-term friend of mine, because he really took me under his wing as well and helped me make these decisions about what to do from a research perspective. And I always looked up to Dr. Roden, who had an amazing influence at Florida and on me, attention to detail, deep understanding of microsurgical anatomy, a caring and empathy for his patients that I like to, take forward in terms of my own clinical practice. And then Dr. Friedman, who really, really cares deeply about his residents at the time when I was in training and to this day. In terms of hardworking, doing the right thing, trying to do the right thing for his patients and for his people at all times, it really meant a lot to me. So that kind of combination of mentors led by Dr. Day was really impactful. Then I had a wonderful experience this 1 year at Miami. I kind of went there in my mind to hone my skills and polish what I had learned as an open vascular surgeon at Florida. And I got a lot more than that. I got that, but I got way more than that, especially from Dr. Heros, who really was kind of an inspirational academic in the truest sense of the word. And I really felt like his intellectual honesty and his approach to complications, his approach to mentorship and dedication to his residents and training was just laudable. And I kind of came away from that like, wow, I'd like to incorporate that aspect into my career. And Jacques Morgos is just a wonderful, wonderful man, an unbelievable technical surgeon. And I learned just a ton of skull base, a lot of skull base and some vascular from him that I just, to this day, I utilize as I'm operating and as I'm taking care of patients. And he is another one who's just an attention to microsurgical anatomy and detail and making an operation perfect so the patient has the best chance of doing well. So I took that away. So that was my training mentorship group, a lot of great influences that I was lucky to have. And then I landed at WashU with, what turned out to be the most impactful mentor in my life, Dr. Dacey, who, as you know, since you trained here, is an amazing man, true academic, dedicated to his residency, dedicated to the department, dedicated to St. Louis and Washington University. And I just wanted to make him proud. And, when I first got here, I remember, I wanted to be in my office before he got here. And I didn't want to leave my office until he had already left, because I really wanted him to think that I was working hard, taking this wonderful opportunity he gave me, and making good on the promise I made that I was going to make something of myself and contribute to the academic environment here at WashU.
You get here to WashU, you're sort of tasked with starting the lab, getting it up and going, developing your practice in skull-based and vascular. Over that, time frame from where you first got here until now, becoming the chair, is there a moment to where you felt that transition of, this is my goal, or was it something that you had started with from the beginning of this was your aspiration, or did you evolve into, I want to be the chair of Washington Neurosurgery after this experience? Is there anything that led you to?
Yeah, I would say that when I first got here, I just wanted to take good care of patients, do a good job as an open vascular surgeon. I really wanted to get my lab going and you know, and get that off the ground, and have a chance of success for a long-term scientific career. I mean, early on, the first couple of years, I was mainly focused on that. After that started going fairly well, I started really thinking, well, what do I want to do long-term? And being a professor and chair had been kind of ingrained in me by many, but especially Dr. Dacey, as kind of, you know, the pinnacle in some ways of an academic career for some people, and certainly for Ralph and for and something I took to heart and ultimately became a goal of mine early on in my career. I never dreamed of being the chair at WashU, frankly. I was hoping that I would be successful enough that I could get a chair job anywhere, and maybe a place that, you know, was good and I could make it better, or maybe even make it great. But certainly didn't think that I would be the kind of person that would be competitive for what I consider one of the top jobs in the country. Until I got into about year 12 or 13 of my faculty time here. And then that was a time where Dr. Dacey's horizon in terms of when he was going to step down started to become clear, you know, and, you know, it was 2 or 3 years away. And I had interviewed for a few chair jobs and had turned one down. And then I kind of realized maybe I could become the chair at WashU. And so I just kind of at that point just said, you know what, I'm not looking anywhere else. I'll play my cards and see how it goes. And so I just stopped looking anywhere else and put my head down and prepared for, you know, when Ralph was going to step down and to be the best version of myself, in hopes that I could be competitive for the WashU chair job. And it worked out. And but certainly that wasn't a design in any way when I first got here, that's for sure.
Over that time period, you know, so obviously congratulations on becoming chair. That's a remarkable, you know, achievement for you. I think it's great for the department. But over that time period, are there some other accomplishments that you're, you know, proud of, that you see as moments in your early practice or later on that were solidified you as a clinician, solidified you as a researcher?
So kind of, you know, things in my career where I really felt proud or something I accomplished.
Like you have an R01.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I yeah. Yeah, I got a K award in my at the end of my first year. That was a proud moment. When I got my first R01, my first independent NIH investigator award, that was a proud moment. I think, you know, when I was promoted from assistant to associate professor with tenure, that was a proud moment. When I became the chair of the CV section, which I put a lot of time and effort into for a number of years, I was really proud of that.
Well, over the course of while I was here,
Yeah.
we transitioned the department in terms of the program director from Dr. Dacey to you,
Yeah.
which was a big deal at the time because he had been the program director for.
Yeah.
And I know at the time, at least on their appearance, you appeared very proud of that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that was that was wonderful, and I think it gets back to my parents being teachers and loving that part of my job. And yeah, I would say Ralph was very incredibly open and understanding that that's something that I, you know, kind of aspired to. And I don't think it was something natural for him to give up, frankly, where he kind of grew up in a time where you're the professor, chair, and program director. Like that was a natural thing, and lots of people did that. You know, but things evolved. The program got bigger and more complex, more rules and things. And so adding me in as an associate program director, I think, was a great opportunity for me. And then I think once I got into that role, I think he saw that I could bring some things to the table. And eventually he did ask me to be the program director. And that was great. In fact, I mean, the way I think of my career, I think from operating on a patient is great. And I feel wonderful. And you do a great operation. They come through it. They're grateful. They get back to their lives. And that brings immediate satisfaction every time you do it. It just feels great. But for me, I really wanted to do more than have that immediate satisfaction. I wanted to have broader impact beyond, you know, what I was doing for each patient that I took care of. And for me, I did that through science, and I did that through being the program director, now the chair, but at the time, science and the program director. And I like building programs, and I like doing science, and I like discovering and trying to implement new things in the clinic. But if you ask me what I'm most proud of, it's really about when I was a residency program director and the people that we trained and the careers that they have gone on to have. They treat patients for 30 or 40 years after they leave here. And to me, that's broad impact and something I'm super proud of. And now as chair, something similar, I still feel that pride with the residents, but I also feel that with the faculty and watching their careers blossom and the contributions they make. Again, that's a way to have broad impact. And when you couple that with the immediate satisfaction of taking good care of patients, it's a wonderful life. It really is.
So for the people that you're training and other young neurosurgeons, why would you suggest that they get involved in organized neurosurgery? Why is that important, and what's that impact on you
Right.
in your career?
Well, it gets back to what we were just talking about, where broader impact. And you got to find out what you're passionate about, what you're good at. And not everybody wants to be a scientist or a translational researcher, and not everybody has the skill set to be, certain things. But, I think a fair number of people, one way you can have broader impact, one way you can contribute to your field that most of us are super passionate about, is through organized neurosurgery. And so for me, getting involved there was an opportunity to have broader impact. And then as I got deeper into it and I got more senior in my career, I realized it's not only broader impact, but it's a way I feel like I can give back to a specialty that has been, wonderful to me. So I view organized neurosurgery as a way to have a broad impact, but also how to give back to your specialty in a meaningful way. So I'll just mention two things from the give back perspective that I'm particularly proud of, that I'm involved with. I just absolutely love it. And that's the role I play with helping lead the K-12 career development program nationally for junior faculty. It's an NIH supported grant. It's in its 12th year of existence. And I've been in leadership of it over the past 7, and I'm the contact PI for it now. And we're absolutely dedicated to helping junior faculty achieve their goals of becoming independent investigators. And every time someone who is a scholar through that program gets an R01 or gets a new, independent award from the NIH, and they email me and let me know that the K-12 program had something to do with it, those are some of the best days, in my professional life, is seeing people prosper like that. And so I feel like that's a way that I can help give back to organized neurosurgery or to academic neurosurgery to help the next generation achieve. Similarly, there's a program through the American Academy of Neurological Surgeons called the Emerging Investigator Program, EIP, Academy Emerging Investigator Program. And that was started by a group of us who were involved with the K-12, but realized only 3 to 4 people get to K-12 each year. And there's a bigger group of people who really can do this and would probably benefit from some mentoring and some guidance. So the Academy developed this new program, this Emerging Investigator Program, to help that group of people. And so it's a 2-year mentoring program. I run it, and we partner established investigators with junior faculty. It's a 2-year mentoring program, and the same thing, getting emails from an emerging investigator scholar who gets their first R01 is just some of the best, some best days of my professional life to see that kind of thing. And again, feeling like I had a little bit of an impact on someone's success means a lot. But I really feel like through those 2 programs, other things, but those 2 programs in particular, I feel like I'm giving back, and helping helping the field prosper for years to come, I hope.
So you've been a champion of neurosurgical research, and research being a component of training programs. But I think I just recently saw a paper that you authored about the decline in, I think, K awards, particularly in cerebrovascular neurosurgery.
Right.
So, any thoughts on that? And then in general, the future of neurosurgery, and what do you see as the um, potential barriers to redirecting that, and what would you like to see happen?
Sure. Well, when you take the biggest, broadest view of academic neurosurgery and science coming from neurosurgery departments or from neurosurgeons, we're doing great. We are doing great. We have, over the last 5 to 10 years, have had a pace of growth of NIH funding as a barometer of overall success and contribution from a science perspective than the neurosurgeons ever had. And we're outpacing all other surgical specialties and most other medical specialties over that period of time. So neurosurgery really is doing outstanding in terms of growth of research and academics. And I feel really good about that. There's lots of reasons for that. Brain initiatives, advancement of NIH funding, and other things. But part of it is some of this infrastructure that over the last 10 years has been developed by organized neurosurgery in partnership with the NIH. That's the K-12 Career Development Award I mentioned, or Career Development Program, the Academy Emerging Investigator Program. But it turns out the NIH has an R25 program to support neurosurgery residents. The Society of Neurological Surgeons now has a program called NSTP, Neurosurgeon Scientist Training Program, which is meant to help mentor and provide some funding for neurosurgery residents who are pursuing research careers. The spine section, led by Zach Ray, one of our faculty here, has created an emerging investigator program specific for spine surgeons to get more spine surgeons doing federally funded, rigorous science. And that community, all those programs have developed in the last really 10 to 12 years. I think that has had some role in why neurosurgery as a field is doing so well in academics. And that's because the field of organized neurosurgery has invested in programs to help develop new investigators over time. And when you talk to people who came up at a time where they didn't have these programs, I was one of them, but even, but others, we just didn't have those kind of mechanisms that this day and age we do have. And I think that bodes well for especially long term. Now, the one part of your question was about vascular neurosurgery in particular. And as a vascular neurosurgeon yourself, and me as a vascular neurosurgeon, I mean, I'm particularly interested and a little concerned about where that particular area of neurosurgery is going. So a group of us, Bill Mack, who just now is the chair of USC, myself and a few others, we looked at this and really came from a K-12 retreat where we were noticing that a lot of tumor surgeons doing well academically, a lot of functional neurosurgeons doing well academically. Turns out pediatrics is starting to do more and more in that area as well. But we as vascular neurosurgeons were noticing that we didn't see as many vascular grants. We didn't see as many neurosurgeons who were vascular neurosurgeons, doing research. So we did a little project to examine that and determine if our impressions were correct. And it turns out in part they were, in part they weren't. So it turns out when you look at vascular neurosurgery as a whole, again, we're doing really well with grants, but it tends to be senior people who are doing well with grants and clinical trials and things like that. But when you look at those who are applying for K awards, who are applying for NREF awards, that's where we saw a softness, where the newer generation in that time frame of their careers didn't seem to be putting in those grants nor getting those grants like they had, that was present earlier. So, and we had some ideas on why that might be. I mean, I think in part is nowadays to be a vascular neurosurgeon, you got to do both open and endovascular. So you have two skill sets you have to develop, and that can be taxing and may take your focus away from research. For example, as you know, as an endovascular neurosurgeon, thrombectomy call for large vessel occlusion stroke is a true emergency, and it's a growing burden. It's an amazing opportunity to change people's lives, but it also is taxing on you personally and professionally. We wonder if that is impacting people's ability to also spend time with research. And so we did the paper to try to examine it. We saw some softness. We've talked to leaders of the CV section and other organizations of vascular neurosurgeons to bring this to their attention, and they're starting to respond. CV section now has, I don't remember the title of it, but they have a specific grant mechanism for junior investigators who are vascular to help catalyze their academic careers. And I think by shining a light on something is a way that we can influence it to make sure that vascular neurosurgeons remain true to science, because that we all know that's an important part of how you can improve care for the future is if you do the fundamental science now.
In your training, I think at Florida is where you met your wife, Mary Jo.
Yeah.
So tell us about the impact of your family, and because we all know as neurosurgeons that there's another group of people who support us through our careers.
Yeah, so Mary Jo has been unbelievably supportive during all this. We met when I was a resident at University of Florida, and she was a medical student. Turns out at Florida, if you are a neurology or neurosurgery resident and you're off service, you TA the neuroscience class, and she was in that class. And so that's where we met. I met January of 1998, 6 months before I left Florida to come here to do research for 2 years. And so I didn't tell her that originally until a couple months into dating, and then I told her, and then we were apart for 2 years, which was a little hard. But, you know, it either makes you stronger or not. And for us, it made us stronger. And we got engaged in the Forest Park here in St. Louis. And she's been an amazing partner in life and extremely supportive of all my endeavors. Now, when we left here, had a fellowship, research fellowship, and went back to Gainesville, I don't think either of us really dreamed that we were coming back. But we had the opportunity to come back, and probably not her first choice as a Florida woman, and used to the beach and the sun to come to Midwest. But she went with it, and we've loved it here once we got here, and she's been amazingly supportive. I have 3 kids who are awesome and supportive. I'm super proud of them. None of them seem to be going into medicine as best I can tell at this stage, but we'll see. But they're doing amazing things, and I'm super proud of them. And they're supportive of me as well, and proud of some of the things that I've accomplished. And I think that family support is really important, not only for me, but for faculty and trainees. And we do everything we can in the department to include families as best we can. So we have all-inclusive events for faculty, trainees, and staff, and we always try to include those spouses at least, and when we can, the kids, because we all know how important all those people are to our success and our contributions and our ability to take care of patients. And so I feel very privileged to have that kind of support, and it all started in Gainesville, Florida.
So we were talking earlier today about neurosurgery and neurosurgery careers, and it can be very tough and very demanding, high intensity operations, long hours. What are some things that you have done to disconnect? There's a lot of discussion now about work-life balance and making sure that people have appropriate ways of disconnecting from the job. So what do you do to enjoy outside of work?
Yeah, so I have learned over time to do that better and better. I didn't do it very well the first few years. And in some ways, maybe I could have done a little bit better. In other ways of looking at it, you're investing in a long-term future, and maybe I needed to put that kind of time in the first few years of my faculty to make things possible. But pretty quickly after a few years of that, I realized I needed to rebalance my life and make a commitment to my family, where I felt like I was committed, but I kind of recommitted a little bit. Really what I need to do is take care of myself better, which I wasn't doing. So I got into fitness and, eventually understood diet much better, and began running in the morning or working out in the morning, oftentimes with a neighbor who helped me get started in this. Later, my wife became my workout partner in the mornings, which really helps. But that dedication to physical fitness and health really matters, for the long term of anybody, but definitely people doing tougher things like you and I do. And then investing in your family and spending as much time with them as possible in their endeavors. And so for me, that was supporting my older daughter with her dance, and my middle son with golf, my younger daughter with basketball. And that time really centers you and, realizes, yes, things are important at work, but there's other things that are more important. So I think those are things that I've tried to do to balance myself. And now that I'm more senior, and one child is out of the house, and the others are much more independent than they used to be, I'm kind of leaning into myself a little bit as well. Things that I enjoy, looking for new hobbies and new experiences that that I think balances it. Because I think if you're balanced, your work is better and more effective, and you're just a better person if you can do that. But it took a little time for me to figure that out.
And so I think you're going into your 6th year as chair.
Yeah.
So 6 years as chair of neurosurgery, weathered the storm of COVID, now into a phase of growth. So over that time, what's your proudest accomplishment for the department? Not you personally, but for the Department of Neurosurgery during your tenure?
Yeah, my number one thing I'm most proud of probably is development of the Brain Tumor Center. That was kind of my lead idea or initiative that I interviewed with, and I just thought it was super important for a variety of reasons that we take what had been building as a wonderful brain tumor program, but put it together in an organized way, get it resourced and supported by the hospital and the school and multiple departments and the cancer center in a way that would create something truly, truly special. And I feel that for a variety of reasons. One is I think you are going to be one of the top or the top academic department in the country. You have to have a top tier brain tumor program. That was important. But really, I just think there's also a big need. Malignant brain tumors is a terrible disease. Incremental progress has been made, but it's very slow and nothing transformative has happened in malignant brain tumor care for decades, really. And I felt that the team we had here, with adding some pieces and organizing it in a serious way and leveraging strengths at Washington University and at Siteman Cancer Center, gave us the best chance that we could be one of those centers that could really, truly move the needle. And I've seen it grow, and I've had numerous conversations with our brain tumor leaders and where we are here at WashU, but where the field is more broadly. And I truly, truly believe in the next few years that it's time for a true transformation in care of that terrible disease. And I'm going to feel proud that we had something to do with it. So I'm super proud of that. I'm proud of a lot of other things that we've done. We have a special area here in neurotechnology and neuromodulation, led by Dr. Luthart, who's just an unbelievable world-class scientist and thought leader in the space. And I thought that's something also we could build around and really make inroads and make a difference. And he's proven that idea right and has built a division of neurotechnology that I don't think anywhere, nobody can match, I don't think. And he's really, changing the field. Brain-computer interface for chronic stroke, looking on same kind of concept for pain. Others in the division are looking to how you can augment memory, how you can treat patients with PTSD, how you can treat patients with medically refractory depression, and a host of other diseases. I really feel like that's an area that can make a big difference in patients' lives in the future. And organizing that effort, helping organize that effort, has been important. I'm proud that the department has gotten into the community. We have made really strategic and intentional moves to get WashU expertise, WashU neurosurgery expertise into the community. We're now at 6 community hospitals taking care of patients in their own backyard. And in part, you're providing expertise in the community, but the other part of that's been very satisfying is, as we did that, we also made connections in the community of St. Louis that have been wonderful. People who have run big businesses, they've had their own lives and had their own accomplishments. And by connecting with the community of St. Louis, we've been able to learn from them. We've become better. had patient experience. We've been better at clinical operations. We've been better in many ways because of those connections we've made in the community. And that's been really gratifying and satisfying effort that we've made over the past 6 years. We've built out the academics. We're now number 5 in NIH funding, and we think that's going to continue to grow. And that's been a major push and effort of ours, and something I'm really proud of. And the NIH funding is just a metric, but it just shows how vibrant the research and discovery science that's going on here. And what's really important for neurosurgery is we're really laser focused on trying to translate those discoveries into the clinic and new novel therapies for clinical trial and beyond. So that's been a wonderful event. We're expanding the residency and really doing a lot of intentional things to make sure we're preparing unbelievable junior faculty coming out of this program that can make contributions for years to come. I probably could keep going on and on, but I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish in the last 5.5 years, and I have great team members who've helped do it with Dr. Ray and Dr. Kim, Dr. Luthard, Dr. Osmond, Dr. Willie, now Dr. Thompson, who just arrived. Ralph Dacey remains a huge part of our department and continues to contribute in many ways, and it's just been wonderful, more than I could have ever expected, really, in terms of becoming chair. And it's just, I really feel a deep sense of purpose to measure up to the past chairs and what they've been able to accomplish in neurosurgery here, and I want to do my part.
Greg, always great to be here. It always feels like coming back home. The department looks great. The institution is just blowing up, expanding. It's remarkable what you all are doing here. I commend you and the members of the department for the things that you're doing here, and I suspect that it will continue to grow and flourish. Thank you again, and just look forward to seeing what else neurosurgery will do from WashU.
Chad, thanks for doing this for us, and thanks for spending some time with me. It's been a great to go down memory lane a little bit, and we're super proud of everything that you've accomplished, and I know you have more to do and more to come at University of Mississippi, but we are truly proud of what you are as a neurosurgeon and as a leader, and look forward to what you're going to contribute in the years to come. And again, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.